Howdy Kiddos, and welcome back to another Playdate. My name is AOK and I'll be your host today. Today we take a look at Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. I'm going to answer the tough questions like, is this game any fun? Is it worth your hard-earned allowance? And finally, how does this game stack up against Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition? Could it possibly be better than its predecessor? Well, all that and mucho más on this edition of AOK Playdate. I'd like to start off with a confession. This is the first time I've played the DLC for this game. I beat the original Dark Souls 2 on my PlayStation 3 when it was released and haven't played the game again until now. This playdate will be focusing on the differences between the original release of the game without the DLC and this particular version with the DLC. Trust me, most things I say in this playdate can be carried over to the main game, as the extra content in this game is just an extension of the original Dark Souls 2. When I beat the game for the first time, I also played as a caster, so I switched it up to a melee-centric character this go-around to get the most different experience possible from my original playthrough. But enough of that, let's get this party started. From Software are a bunch of trolls. Digital bullies that will ram your head into your locker, dump your lunch on top of your head, depants you during recess, and take that girl you've been crushing on forever to the school dance this weekend. On Monday, all you'll hear from her is that he was such a gentleman and how she couldn't imagine going with anyone else. You'll be ridiculed mercilessly by your friends because that wasn't you, and the whole time you'll wonder, what the hell am I missing from all of this? But I'm here to tell you that you're better than that bully. You can beat that bully, and you will beat that bully, and emphatically ask them, what's my name? That's the kind of mentality you need in order to play a Dark Souls game. If you go into these types of games with anything but your war face, then you've wasted your time and your money. This game is a lesson in humility and masochism. Why do we do this to ourselves? It's simple. Perseverance. As human beings, it's imperative that we naturally want to succeed, no matter what the cost. We're competitive, focused, determined, and most of all, we don't take shit from the blue smelter demon. That's right, I'm going to start off the playdate this week with my Debbie Downer because I'm going to face this asshole head on, right out of the gate to prove to From Software that I'm not scared of them. Let me give you a little insight on how this boss fight works. In the Crown of the Old Iron King DLC, you come across an area called the Iron Passage. This gauntlet is the most infuriating section of the entire game. Not only do you have to go through this area just to get to the boss, but you also have to do it without wasting your healing materials, aka your Estus flasks. This twisted excuse for a corridor tempts you into multiple paths to reach the boss's door. One path is the longer path to your left. This path is littered with varying enemies that want to dick you over. It has archers that take off enormous amounts of health if they hit you once. It has enemies that will cast spells that will slow you down to half speed. It will have knights that will have generously large hitboxes that will stun or daze you if they connect with one of their blows. And finally, they top it off with a giant at the end that will stun or daze you if he connects with his monstrous attacks. Oh, and he also spits fire out of his shoulders that if it touches you will daze you as well. And that's just Path A. Then there's Path B, to your right. The only good news about this path is that it is shorter. There are two hallways that you have to get through to get to the boss, and both hallways are the same. There is a lever at the beginning. After you pull said lever, there is a gate that lifts up at the end of the hallway, allowing you to get into the next part. But there are similar gates on the sides of the hallway that open up as well, releasing knights that want to get in your way. Now normally you would kill each knight and just go along your merry way. Well, to hell with you for thinking that it would be so easy. The gate at the end of the corridor closes shortly after it opens, so you have to run to get past it. These knights that come out get in your way, and if they hit you, it means the gate shuts. You get caught in the middle, and then you die. Horribly. I ended up going with Path A and got pretty good at avoiding the mobs in my way with the occasional screw-up. So after we've mastered the run-through, we finally get to the boss's fog door. Now this demon is exactly like the Smelter Demon from earlier in the game, with a few WTF differences thrown in. Difference number 1, it's blue instead of red. Difference number 2, you fight this demon later in the game, so one would assume a reasonable increase in difficulty over its earlier counterpart, and one would assume correctly. Difference number 3, this boss hits harder than any boss in the game with the exception of one. If you take 2 hits, you're dead, so healing up after the first hit is crucial. And finally, difference number 4, and the most important one, the NPCs that you can summon at the beginning of this gauntlet are computers that just take hits. Their damage is so low that they will die long before they take this guy down a peg or two. So they are good for really only one thing, distraction. but if you choose to summon them, then your individual damage you deal to the boss is lowered significantly. So we have our first dilemma: fight him solo and take all his attention for yourself, or let the others tank him for you and extend the fight at the cost of damage. In the first Smelter Demon encounter, the red one that is, you summon Lucatiel of Mira. She is a fierce warrior that befriends you earlier in the game. In order to be able to summon her, you have to talk to her in 2 different places leading up to this encounter. One is right before No Man's Wharf, and the second one is right in the Lost Bastille. She's a badass though, and makes the first Smelter Demon fight a joke. She can take damage, dish it out, and tank the whole fight for you. However, in the second fight with the blue Smelter Demon, you get 2 summons. Great! Amazing! You would think Lucatiel would be one of them. No. In her place, you get 2 worthless damage sponges. The fight breaks down like this. When you enter, he starts in the middle of the room and activates by lighting himself in a blue flame. He has one weapon, a massive sword to which he will power up as the fight goes on. These power-ups to his weapon happen at timed increments. However, if you can knock him down to 50% health before he powers up for the first time, he won't do that power-up and just skip to the second power-up. He has one of 6 attacks with a ridiculous hitbox on many of them. As melee, you want to keep your distance and attack when the time is right. When he does do that second power-up, his sword hits like a truck and his attacks cover more area than ever before. As a caster though, you can just stand back and let your summons tank the boss while you go to town from a safe distance. However, as a melee, it is so much harder, but that's why I do what I do for your viewing enjoyment. Eventually, after dying 26 times, believe me, I counted, and having to do that damn run back every single time, you could see how I hate this fight with a passion. However, with every single attempt on this boss, my passion increased. I had to beat this boss, I needed to destroy this boss and then piss on his ashes. Then, the unthinkable happened. Yes, I killed that bastard dead. My hand shook, my voice trembled as I pumped my fist in the air like Judd Nelson in The Breakfast Club. As with any Dark Souls boss, you can take the souls of defeated bosses and craft them into weapons through certain vendors. So I did this. Even though his sword is underpowered to so many other weapons out there, I wanted to use this sword to let every enemy know the pain I suffered with every single frickin' swing. His death became my vengeance, not to mention the sword looks badass. But I've spent more than enough time on my tantrum. Now it's time for the good stuff. The graphics upgrade in this game is amazing. Given that the original game came out on last generation's hardware, it's leaps and bounds better than the original. Even though that statement isn't shocking, it's still a highlight of the game. Everyone clamored about how beautiful Majula looked before. Now it's just utterly stunning. Other areas are more noticeably beautiful, such as Heat's Tower of Flame and the dreary Drangleic Castle. Another great thing about this version of the game is how From Software has switched up the content. Imagine in Heat's Tower of Flame you are heading to the left to fight the old Dragon Slayer. When you originally played Dark Souls 2, you could just run up through all the enemies, kill the last one, and lower the drawbridge. Well, imagine my surprise when you get to the drawbridge to only find instead of a knight, you encounter a huge frickin' dragon that kills you with a single fire breath. Damn you, From Software. They have also switched around a few chests that didn't used to be mimics but now are, and destroy you in one hit. Another cruel change is that in the Dragon Shrine, just before the Ancient Dragon boss, there is a staircase that usually has a few enemies on it when the game first launched. You could pull these enemies one by one, but now it not only is lined with 9 enemies, but all these enemies attack at once. That's right, get ready to be bum rushed by 9 enemies at the same damn time. You can try to be a hero, emphasis on try, but I found the easiest way is to cheese it and run past all of them into the Ancient Dragon's area and keep running until they reset. Don't worry about the Ancient Dragon, you have to attack him before he'll attack you. Talk to him before you try and fight him so you can get the Ashen Mist heart. I was also impressed by the character Aldia, for which this game is titled after as the Scholar of the First Sin. This character disguises itself in different areas as an unlit bonfire. Once you try to light the fire, an explosion will occur, and for a split second you'll think, shit, now there's trapped bonfires? But don't worry, that's not the case. Aldia then appears, and after some lengthy dialogue he will present you with a yes-no question. My advice to experience the full outcome of this game is to answer yes to every question he gives you throughout the game. I won't spoil the significance of this character, but if you haven't spoiled it for yourself, he is an interesting character whose true intentions and history is uncovered with every encounter you have. It was a nice change to the game to give it something to flesh out the already vague story of Dark Souls 2. With this iteration of the game, you also get access to an alternate ending that wasn't available with the original release of this game. If you've played the original Dark Souls, the same applies to this game's ending as well. You choose between one way or the other. Speaking of a story, this game doesn't have much of one. Many players have to search online just to understand all the small things they missed on their first playthrough. If you're confused, don't worry, nobody really knows what's exactly going on in a Souls game. But even without the clear story and the seemingly similar gameplay throughout the entire game, why are Souls games so special? Why do so many people say these games are so great? Well, that's my big ups of the game. I alluded to the reasons why someone would put themselves through such punishment earlier, but as with every Souls game, the best thing is the fact that it is a Souls game. Let me explain. Dark Souls goes by one simple premise. You kill enemies and absorb their souls. That's it. That's the gist of the game. Sure, you improve your armor, increase your stats, experience the beauty of the game through its various environments and enemies, but what counts more than anything in this game are the souls. Souls are the currency that allow you to upgrade your stats, gear, and buy upgrades and items to help further your progress throughout the game. So let's say you kill an enemy and get 10,000 souls from that enemy. Well, at the beginning, that will get you about 9 to 10 levels, which is massive. Let's say you die though. Well, you drop your souls at the place you died. You will respawn at the last bonfire you activated with 0 souls, and you have the choice of going back and getting what you lost. However, if you die again without retrieving your souls, then those souls are lost forever. This becomes a risk-reward system where after you die, you can either retrieve your souls and risk another death, thus losing your souls if you do die again, or you can leave those souls and have to admit defeat. This is where Dark Souls takes advantage of human nature. We don't like to lose, we don't give up easily, and this studio knows how stubborn we can be. It's such a simple premise, but it is one of the most effective methods to hook the gamer. In a world of pay-to-win business methods and so many game developers making their content easier to keep the gamer from rejecting the game due to difficulty, From Software ignores all these common day trends and shows us all that difficulty in games is something to be cherished, not feared. They present you with the game and say beat it, if you can. This challenge calls back to the days of old Nintendo classics such as Battletoads, Ghouls and Ghosts, and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! The challenge, failure, and eventual retribution and revenge is what makes Souls games so special, and the best thing about From Software is they know what they're known for, and they won't be shying away from this format anytime soon. Other developers have sold out to create games that will reach as many computer screens and televisions as possible. From Software may not be setting sales records like Call of Duty or Battlefield, but they make more memorable content. And 20 years from now, when you're listing the all-time classics in gaming, I bet you more people will talk about the Souls series over Call of Duty Black Ops 23. I will say that one of the things I have always hated about Dark Souls games is the multiplayer. I know I'll catch flack for saying this, but I hate it when my game gets randomly invaded by an asshole who thinks it's honorable to kill me when I'm already dealing with a few enemies. The fact that I'm playing a single player experience to be forced into multiplayer at random intervals in the game, it takes me out of the game and is unnecessary when all I want to do is play by myself. You can turn off multiplayer in a few ways, but these are just workarounds that the player shouldn't have to remember to complete before every playthrough. I want to be able to launch my game and simply play instead of having to launch my game, then disconnect from the internet, or switch to offline mode on a console, or have my firewall block the connection, or burn a human effigy and remember to continue monitoring the icon as well as burning more and more effigies. From Software needs to put in an on-off switch to disable multiplayer encounters because they don't add to the game really whatsoever in a single-player environment. If you do kill the invader, you only get some souls and the occasional item. It's such a minuscule reward for such an annoying occurrence. I don't need some dick that is more overpowered than I am and more experienced than I am to come into my game, kill me while I'm in the middle of enjoying my game, then flash some bullshit cocky sign at me like they're tough shit. Honestly, fuck off. Anytime I get invaded, I just kill myself so I don't have to wait for that bullshit to go down. I got shit to do. I can't be waiting for some dickhead to find me, kill me, and taunt me. Even more shitty is the fact that in certain areas, you can be summoned into other people's games as a gray spirit against your will, and then killed in their game, and then just return to your game as if nothing happened. Then why do it? The worst part of these summons is that the enemies in their world don't attack them. No, they only attack you. So let me get this straight. You force me out of my game into some other person's game just to be outnumbered 2 or 3 to 1, get slaughtered, and then return me to my game? What was the fucking point? Oh, and if that person who summoned you has a shitty internet connection, which most of them do, I have to wait for a minute or so just to get this bullshit started. Let me enjoy my game, From Software. Their enjoyment is not my concern, and not the reason I paid $60 for your game. But enough about that. I need to tell you about the DLC. This was my first time going through the 3 DLC packs since I didn't purchase them when they originally came out. So what did I think? Well, pretty badass. The environments, true to Dark Souls fashion, were incredible. From the swirling blizzards of Ilium Lois, to the forgotten underground ruins of Shulva, to the desolate Iron Keep, they all hold their own majesty and allure. As you progress through the old Iron Keep, you descend to the bottom of a huge tower where the final boss awaits, the Fume Knight. I mentioned the old Iron Passage and the Blue Smelter Demon earlier, but this boss was just a tough boss fight that required absolute precision in order to defeat him. Unlike the Blue Smelter Demon, he doesn't rely on bullshit tactics and cheap deaths to defeat you. He swings a smaller sword that is easy enough to dodge, and halfway through the fight you think to yourself, is that all you got? But then the surprise comes where he pulls out his greatsword, and if this thing hits you, let's just say it doesn't end well usually. I know I complained about the uselessness of my 2 summoned NPCs earlier, but I'm kinda glad they made these NPCs so weak, as mere distractions more than integral allies. It doesn't allow you to cheese the fights, which is a good thing. These 3 DLC chapters are supposed to be the toughest content in the game, and believe me when I say that they don't disappoint. After I eventually learned the Fume Knight's patterns and took him down, I moved on to Shulva, aka the Crown of the Sunken King. However, I will bring up one other confusing part of this game, and that is the method of entry into Shulva. This game does little to nothing in describing what you must do in order to open the doors to gain access. The only information you have to go off of is a vague message of closed that appears when you approach the door. You can waste valuable time just wandering around looking for a switch or some other way to open the door, and the game just laughs at you. I'll spoil this puzzle for you, but trust me, you'll be looking up the answer on the internet anyways if I don't. Back in Majula, there is an NPC that offers to lower a ladder for you down a massive well, if you pay him enough souls that is. I paid him 3,500 souls and this got me where I needed to go. As you drop down a time or two, you will come across a place where you notice a ladder leading up to another door, as shown here. Get down to this platform and scale the ladder to get up to the door. However, this door requires the Forgotten Key, which you get from defeating the 2 giants below the Black Gulch. In the Black Gulch, get close to the ledge where the second worm comes out of the wall, then drop down here. Then come over here and drop down again. And finally, drop down one final time to get to the tunnel to the giants. These giants are not pushovers, however, and you have to fight them both at once. You can maneuver your way to a small hole in the wall with a chest inside and cheese the fight by picking them off with poison arrows or magic. Once you have the key, return to the ladder towards the bottom of the well in Majula. When you get into this room, you will get the item you need to your left, the Dragon Talon, along with a few other goodies in the 3 chests. Once you have that, you can access Shulva. This area is a massive underground ruin that eventually leads to 2 bosses. The last boss, Sin, is a pain in the ass, but his defeat, similar to the Fume Knight, is both rewarding and well earned. The 3rd DLC is the Crown of the Ivory King. You enter a massive derelict castle that is experiencing a blizzard that limits your field of view while outside. You can go to the left to enter a boss fog door where you will encounter a tough boss that is invisible. I'll save you the time and let you know that you do get an item that allows you to see invisible enemies in this area if you continue to the right. So head to the right, not the left. There are also 4 knights you must find. Each time you locate one of these knights, they will disappear and help you later on with the final boss encounter of the area. I would advise you to track them down as well, unless you have balls made of steel and want to fight the boss and his many minions. This chapter wasn't as hard as the others, but it was the most beautiful and carried with it the best backstory about the Burnt Ivory King's past. So what did we learn today from my overextensive ramblings? Let's recap. For the upside, we have the graphical upgrades, the DLC chapters, Aldia, and the cruel change-ups, with the big ups being the simple fact that this game is a Souls game. For the downside, we have the forced multiplayer, the unexplained locked door to get to Shulva, with the son of a bitch Blue Smelter Demon playing Debbie Downer. But let's get down to business. Was this game fun? Of course. Was it worth my hard-earned allowance? Hell yeah. Does it live up to the enormous hype of the original Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition? Most definitely. Is it better? No. The boss fights in Scholar of the First Sin are difficult, time-consuming, exhaustive, and utterly fantastic. However, the 4 bosses in Prepare to Die were flawless. Sin, the Fume Knight, and the Burnt Ivory King just don't match up with Artorias, Calamite, and Manus. Manus is the most epic fight in Dark Souls history, with Artorias holding an argument for that title. When I played Prepare to Die, I was blown away. I had never seen anything like it before. With Scholar of the First Sin, even though I hadn't seen the content before, I'd seen it before. And sometimes, even though the sequels are phenomenal, they just can't compete with the original and how it made you feel. Both games are borderline perfect and deserve all the praise they get, and I absolutely cannot wait for the Ultimate Edition of From Software's most recent game, Bloodborne, to come out. This format that they've created is the best DLC I've ever played in my life. If you've never played a Dark Souls game, then you don't know what you're missing out on, and I pity you because you don't know what a truly gratifying gaming experience is until you've played these masterpieces. But keep in mind, these are just my opinions. Feel free to drop the mic in the comments below and tell me what your most infuriating moment was in a Souls game. If you like to press red buttons while muttering the phrase, "What does this do?" then hit that subscribe button below. Leave me a thumbs up if you liked me, leave me a thumbs down if you did not. It's okay, I can take the criticism. The only thing I want to let you know is thank you for spending part of your day with me. I truly appreciate the support, and I'll see you next time on AOK Playdate.
Take this. Do not resist. The dragon welcomes you.